we're in a housing crisis, and the housing crisis says we need to deliver 200,000 homes a year. Yeah, if we're delivering 100,000 for the past since I've been born, yeah, what does that do to your generation, and what does that do to my children's generation?
Developers are ruining the built environment.
You will not find a more ambitious group of human beings.
Hi everyone, you are listening to another episode of the 1 to 100 Architecture Podcast, where we delve into everything architecture related, shed some light on our personal experiences, and help you in understanding the architecture realm. We are currently rounding off season 3, no offence, and in today's episode we have the first of 2 parts. No offence, we don't need architects. This episode explores the role and importance of architects alongside other industries in the built environment to explore whether we really need architects in this society. I am pleased to be joined here today by Amanda, Adonai, and Naomi. And of course, for those who are watching on YouTube, hi guys, you'll see that we have a lovely guest with us today, Adewole Ademolake. And just to give you guys a little introduction to who this lovely man is, here we go. Are you guys ready?
We're not ready.
After 9 years working on large-scale regeneration projects in both the public and private sectors, Adewole founded Ademolake in 2010. He has an extensive amount of experience working on small sites and large-scale regeneration projects. His goal is to simplify what is seemingly a complicated process, and he is passionate about providing homes and collaboratively working with stakeholders. Not only is Adewole an avid blogger, he writes about his experiences through his blog. I'm going to plug you right here. Check it out, www.alakedreaming.com. He also founded a collective called the Property Development Book Club, which brings together property development professionals to discuss multidisciplinary topics. Adewole has a wealth of property development experience through his working career, and we thought it would be just great to hear his perspective on today's episode. So without further ado, welcome Adewole.
No, thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I gave a long bio, but introduce yourself, let the listeners know who you are, a bit about you.
Yeah, that's fine. Hello everyone, and thank you all for coming here.
No
I
worries.
need to
Yeah,
give a
thanks
quick
for
plug,
joining.
1 to 100. So I'm Adewole. I met the collective, everyone here today. I met all of you guys via Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a lot of your conversations, and I found it interesting, and I thought, you know what, I'm glad that we're here today from a Clubhouse conversation. So I think it's quite important that I'm very keen for people to not only stick to digital relationships, but also get to meet each other face to face with the view that maybe I might need an interior designer, an architect, you know, and I think it's quite good. So a bit about myself: I'm a chartered planning and development surveyor. I work in property development, as mentioned by Bethany, and I've set up my own company. So I'll be leaving work in the next 3 months. We're now in June. I'll be out of work in August, and I'll be doing my own property developments, as well as helping others do theirs.
Wow.
So that is me in a nutshell.
That's congratulations.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
I know.
One day we'll be
working
there.
for yourself.
Literally.
Yeah.
And how did you get to that point?
Well, how I got there, I would say, firstly, is a good mum, you know. You got a good woman behind you. I got a wonderful wife, and I've got wonderful daughters as well. So all of those, obviously, if you've got a supportive family, I think it makes all the difference in attaining, you know.
100%.
And I think that goes for men needing good women, and for women needing good guys, and for single people having good family members that support them, you know. So I think that if you've got that going, you're in a good position. And obviously there's no secret, I'm a Christian, I love God and stuff, and he's a strong influence behind some of the successes, or all of my successes. So I think all of that culminated together has enabled me to get to this position. So from a development point of view, I've done it all. So I've built to sell, build to rent, and we've built to dispose at bulk to investment companies as well. So I've done and seen everything I need to see whilst working hence why I thought, you know what, let's try and see what damage I can do myself.
Yeah, that experience.
Yeah.
No, that's a great segue into our first question. So can you explain what your role is as a planning and development surveyor and how it differs from and supports architects?
So in a nutshell, a planning and development surveyor. So the RICS have a number of different types of professionals. Planning and development happens to be one of the pathways that a surveyor can follow. And that primarily focuses on town planning. So, you know, the general stuff that a planning consultant would deal with. We have a strong appreciation for all of the planning regulations, etc., SIL, Section 106s, design, costs. I would say that we are the middle point of every single development.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, normally you have architects that deal with REBA stages 0 to maybe 7.
Yeah.
You report into us. Contractors report into us, consultants and everyone else report into us. And it's not that it doesn't mean that we're more important than anyone else. Our job is to make sure things happen, that money is made, is done on time, and the client's happy. So a planning and development surveyor looks at not only the design elements, not only planning, but we also look at stuff like construction. We have to be appreciative of that, and development. So, you know, like, I think we might have spoken about calculating profitability, and I think that is critical for architects to understand the turning points of profitability in projects, because
That's
maybe
true.
then
It's true. I can't even lie.
you know, no,
It's actually true.
because I think that I've been in a lot of project meetings and things are proposed and there isn't an appreciation. So you might have one panel that comes from Scandinavia, the remote part of the mountain, and then we're now trying to establish how we're going to get it from there to here. What duties, how much is that material? If that supplier goes bust, what happens then? We're going to have to find somewhere else, and the impacts on planning. So I think that as what I would class as a development manager, which I am, you have to have a broad appreciation for all those things. But how we support architects, I would say, we are the architects of the designers. You've got the strong commercial ends, which is your quantity surveyor. I will put a development manager in the middle, because ultimately we have to balance what people want, which is desirable homes, attractive places, curb appeal, but we also have to balance that with commerciality, and we're the ones that have to balance all of that quite well. So I think that's what I would say planning and development is, and that's how we support architects.
Wow, good answer. Look at that. From the middleman to everything. And just with like you guys, how did that kind of match what your perception of property development, property surveyor, what that role looked like?
I think it's so obviously Adewole's work. I guess you work with more like commercial clients, because I think I work in a small practice, so there's about 10 people in my team, and I think we do it all. So like having a developer in our team would be like, I don't know. I don't know how we would best utilize it. Do you know what I mean? But I think it works best on on a large commercial scale. Like it makes sense, because how do you calculate profitability? Because when you're resourcing architects, you're resourcing assistants, you have to think about the material. You end up making a huge loss instead of a profit. And I think that's why a lot of architectural firms actually fail, is because they're not thinking far in advance. They're kind of just thinking about like the immediate gratification of this project as opposed to the long term. So, you know, I'm ready to switch sides.
It's sounding good.
It sounds good. It does
and
sound
I feel
good.
like even it makes me think of our architectural education. I feel like everything he said just makes me think of like the business side of architecture, or to think of the business side of architecture. I think a lot of the time we're still stuck in the design world. So when we do start working, we're still in that mindset. So I don't mind jumping ship. I actually don't mind.
You know what? I actually had a question, because I mean, like Bethany asked, like how you know your role kind of how your role supports architects. Was like, how can architects support you in the other way around? Like, is there anything that I mean, to be honest, I feel like there's a lot that
You did a blog, didn't you?
probably
Actually,
do.
Yeah, I
Like,
did.
Yeah.
What
sure.
are your frustrations with architects?
With architects?
Yeah. Go on.
I'm not gonna go
offense.
into like
No offense.
all of it, but I'll just give you a snapshot. So I think that let's go with the simple things. If I need an accommodation schedule, I don't want it in PDF. I want it in Excel. Point number one.
It's very direct.
Yeah, no, because like a lot of the time when you're getting these, I've had instances where I get sent an accommodation schedule. It's in the PDF format, but when I've transported it to Excel, the numbers don't add up. So I think that's why we always like things in Excel.
Right.
I think that the other thing around design, I would say, is people need to think about what the objective is. and the objective will be, for if I was an architect, the number one objective is that I want to see whatever I design, I want to see it built. I don't want to see it win awards. I want to see it built and appreciated and used as I intended to be used. But I find that with some of the architects that I may have worked with, they're very interested in awards.
Yeah.
And that comes with its challenges, proposals that are unfortunately unaffordable, and schemes that get stalled and have to go back in for planning. So those are the 2 points. I would say that if that commerciality that we've spoken about, if architects can take a greater appreciation for the commerciality, which a lot of architects do, but I think that utilising your quantity surveyors, if you're not commercially minded, you don't have to be. You've got a quantity surveyor who is very commercially minded, and then you can say, we're proposing this, what do you think? The quantity surveyor said, let me run some costs. No, yes. And if they work together as a team, it's not meant to be the quantity surveyor. Exactly. If they work together, because that's what we do as development managers, we use everyone to our advantage. But I think that if the wider architecture team can do the same, which some of them do, but they don't do as much as, in my opinion, I think that makes all the difference.
100%, because at least I know in my practice we do a lot of competitions, and me and Mandy were talking about it the other day about how some practices don't decide not to do any kind of competitions because
it's not profitable.
It doesn't make sense for them, because it takes like a lot of labor and a lot of work and time out of it that they might not make any money out of if they don't win. So but yeah, definitely in our practice, like there's a lot of emphasis put on winning a competition, because that's where you get the job, because if you win the competition, you got the project, and then you can go and do all of that. But it's that kind of process that's now hindering, like later on down the line, that's got extra costs, because now we've just produced something that is going to win, and it has to stand out, it has to be kind of bold, it has to do something different, but in reality it doesn't work like
but
you're
also
proposing.
Though, that's what clients want though, isn't it? They want something that looks nice and something that looks
and
flashy
shiny.
and sparkly.
It depends. I think it
And
depends.
but it depends on, you're right, it depends on the client. It depends on,
If you're dealing with novelty clients,
yeah.
like, I don't know, like in Kensington, I went to, I'm not sure where, I can't remember what it's called. The flower show? The Kensington Chelsea Flower Show. Thank you very much. So I went to the Chelsea Flower Show, and I walked through, and I went to one of, I think it was the Emirati family that done a development. And you can see Portland stone everywhere, from the floors all the way to the facades. It's crazy. Having said that, not everyone can afford to build to that type of budget. But in some architects' minds, they see projects with the same lens. Whether they're dealing with a trillionaire all the way to like maybe a small developer, they have the same lens. But I think that there needs to be different lenses based on people's budgets, in my opinion, and they shouldn't have to explain that to someone.
No, it's true.
It's true. We're missing a lot of the practicalities and just collaboration too. Oh my goodness. We'll work on that. Well, I mean, I hope so. But so I guess this is where we kind of get into the no offense part. You probably saw this question. I was just a bit taken aback. I didn't know how you felt about it. But so someone actually I know said that developers are ruining the built environment. So I just want to know your thoughts on that one.
No, I totally disagree.
Yeah.
Because no, and it's not even only because we have to look at things. I'm not going to say I'm a fundamentalist, but we have to look at the foundation. If developers don't build, who will do it? So that's question number one. That's 1 point. If developers don't build, and developers is not only private developers, local authorities. The term developer is anyone that's changing or adding to something. So that could be any one of your clients. If they stop building, what else is there to do? There's nothing, you know. So I think that this balance around us ruining it, you know, for us to get a project through planning. So you've got, if we got a scheme and we worked with an architect, you guys, it's going to go through planning and it's going to be ratified by a town, the council, and then it's going to be, you're going to also have all of the other statutory consultees that will have an opinion. If it was drastically detaching from the community and the future of a local area, you can be rest assured it won't get planning. So I think that, and then also a lot of us have to understand, like, how many of you owned properties here today?
In my dreams.
So there's one person, yeah. So what does that mean to you guys? A lot of people can say, oh, developers, but you have to remember that we're in a housing crisis, and the housing crisis says we need to deliver 200,000 homes a year. Yeah, if we're delivering 100,000 for the past since I've been born, yeah, what does that do to your generation, and what does that do to my children's generation? So I think that there's this whole tipping point and a balance that everyone needs to consider when we're looking at like the whole utopia of design versus the practicalities of affordability. It's a big problem here. You know, we're not building quickly. If you think last year, I think we did 120, 130, COVID. I've never seen it go, the time that we've built the most was during the war, the last war. And that's when local authorities and everyone else was building quite considerably. But if you look at now, we've got market factors, build cost inflations, which is quite ridiculous. A standard house in London is £500,000. To £500,000, if you divide it by 5, how much is that? That is 100 grand. You need to earn 100 grand to be able to afford to buy a standard house in London. 100 grand. So if you think about those numbers, I think that's why us developers have to be a bit practical. You know, there's the philosophical argument, which I'm not going to dispute. There are arguments, but on the flip side, there are realities that I think is facing all of our generations.
That's very true. I can't even argue with that.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. However, I just want to understand that question in terms of the angle that person probably could have been coming from. Maybe in the sense of, like, okay, you're in your area, you're just seeing so many different buildings being built. Like, I think in my area, they knocked down the community centre to build some flats. So I feel like in that kind of angle, you're like, okay, like, but yeah, developers are coming here and they find one plot of land, yeah, we're going to build some flats there. But I do
see it from a gentrification.
I hear that.
But I hear where you're coming from. But I feel like then if you're building like loads of flats and replacing the community centre, where's the community supposed to be?
Where's the hair shop?
There's many of them.
No, but I feel like do you know what I mean? Like, it changes the public perception. It changes the perception of the space. Like, I remember I used to live in Wood Green, and I don't know if you guys have been to the hair shop in Turnpike Lane.
Someone will know.
Someone will know. And so I went back, so I don't live there anymore. I went back, and the hair shop went, and I was like, and the whole place had changed. Like, they put like a Pret in the middle of Wood Green. I was like, this doesn't belong here. Like, it just seems so, and I understand that you need to make profit from maybe a specific place in London to, I don't know, build its reputation or something like that. But it changes the perception of the space completely. It changes the experience of the people who live there. And I think sometimes maybe that also needs to be considered. Maybe not so much for the people who will live there, but the people who are currently living there. You know,
I can't disagree with that. I can't
Oh.
disagree with that because we had a discussion in our podcast around Elephant and Castle, you know, and there was a Latin community, and there's all types of stuff that happened there. Obviously, a lot of us I grew up in East London. It's not the same. Things are changing, you know, and in particular, I grew up in Forest Gate, and that area, like, I could not believe my eyes. I drove past there yesterday. I was seeing bread shops and stuff. Like, I was seeing restaurants and arches. I said, those arches is where these guys used to do X, Y, and Z. But I think that there's two sides to it, you know. I think that you know, if your group of people is disproportionately impacted by the changes, I think that you have got a reason to be upset. But I think that this then raises a question around how do people engage in the process? Because local plans, they get published
Yeah.
every 5 years, and then they go through a process. How often are people from our background engaging in that process to understand, all right, they're going to demolish my council flat one day, and or perhaps that business is going to change. I think that if people can get involved in the local plan process and get involved in the planning process, I think that you can easily say that is a staple behind our community, and you need to retain it in some format. And that could even mean you speaking to your local MP and your local councillors to say, we're not saying that we're opposed to development, we just want you to have this in mind when you're putting forward these proposals. Yeah.
Do you think people know where to go though? Like, say for example, you know, you did have reservations about something that was being built, like, and you,
The average person wouldn't know.
No.
I don't think that information's available to everyone, and I think that's a choice. Because at the end of the day, I think money moves. You know, money speaks more. So if they wanted to build something in an area, they're going to do it regardless of what a community might want to say, depending on how loud they might say. But maybe
that's
again, no one says anything. So
I feel like the perception is that their voice won't be heard to say why.
No, 100%
it
will be heard. 100% it will be heard, and I'm 100% on that. And I'll tell you why. If you look at what happened in Tottenham, there was I think around where the football stadium is. I think Northumberland Park, right?
Yeah.
That was going to be something totally different. And the community stood up and said they wanted something different, and that was overturned. So I think that if people could come together and not get into emotional tirades, and have objective conversations, and then you're able to utilize your local councillors and your leaders of your councils, etc. I think that can make a massive difference.
It's also the relationship that the community has with developers, with their council, because I think there might be some cases where they might sell something to a community and be like, oh my god, you're gonna get like a new gym, a new this, a new that, and then it's not what they envisioned, and now it's kind of like, oh, it's here now.
But there are companies that focus on like community engagement as well. I think they should be hired more.
Very, very
like
important.
Resolve
Beyond the box.
Yeah. Symbiotics do it
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
Because you were saying about Northumberland Park. We all know Broadwater Farm. They're regenerating that place. I know I worked with the Beyond the Box to like talk to the community there. So there are like organisations there talking to the community to ask them what they would want in that area, and they had literally had ballots around the area for the community to like speak up. What do you want in your area before we come and regenerate the place? So
it's interesting that independent organisations are not part of.
No, but they should.
But they've been hired by the local authority to go there. Yeah.
So I think this you know what, you raise a good point. Yeah. You raise a good point. I'm not gonna knock you on that, because I think that as you say, like I'm not gonna say the hand that pays is the hand that rules.
It kind of, that's how the world runs, you know. I'm not gonna lie.
It is like that to a degree, but I think that I'm not gonna speak about Broadwater Farm. I'm gonna speak very broadly about other things. So I think that you know, like development is meant to change things socially, economically, and environmentally. And if a certain location is not meeting certain aims for those reasons, it could be crime, could be all types of life dependencies. Because you know, like there's some softwares that you can look at life dependencies, and if it's found that one area is disproportionately rubbish on all fronts, not rubbish, but it's not performing on all fronts, that means that there needs to be a new way of thinking about things. So I think that you know, when you look at that, there is a massive balancing act that one has to consider.
It's a big job. Like it's a lot of things to consider from multiple different angles. Like it's not just like one thing, and there's no clear answer for any given community, because one thing might work for one community and you try to replicate it somewhere else and it doesn't work. So
and that whole, I hate to talk about crime, is not what I wanted to talk about, but I know of certain locations, and the estates are so big.
Don't come for Croydon.
It's definitely Croydon.
And you can do stuff, and then you can get away within that estate quite comfortably. And that in itself does not, you know, like the secure by design standards that you're all aware of. some of these buildings are not compliant with that, because it kind of protects people from doing stuff. And I think, imagine you being a young mum and you're hearing all types of gunshots or whatever it may be, and you know that there is an infrastructure in place within that building to make sure that whoever did it will never get caught. Does that make you feel comfortable? So I think that is sometimes when we think about housing, can't only just think about the profit, you have to think about the social impacts and the social benefits it brings as well. So
there's so much to consider when designing. It's like, how do you balance all these factors? Like, honestly, it's a lot. Which kind of helps with the next question, because of these factors. Obviously, we have architects. That's why we're here, right? Can anyone design a building? Do you actually need architects to do that? It's quite. That's the question. I'm not even going to elaborate. I just want to know your thoughts.
I don't know. It's triggered.
No,
You're thinking back to
people watch the previous episode. It's hard to find middle ground. But not my opinion.
I don't think
so. I'll leave you guys to answer, then I'll just throw in something in
Who's
there.
going to consider all these factors? Does it need to be an architect, or are there other industries, roles within the same industry that
I think if you're a good designer, you would consider everything. Like, you don't have to be an architect, but like if you're a good designer, then you have considered all of these things and you've produced a project that works on multiple levels. I mean, it might fail in one area or the other, but it's all to do with compromise, I guess. But so if you're good at your job, then yes. But if not, then I would prefer an architect, because that's exactly what they've studied to do.
Adewole.
Hey.
So in terms of I think particularly on architecture, I think that an appreciation I have for architecture is that you guys would have gone through you would have gone through an extensive period. I think someone had said something like, if someone said they wanted to operate on you and they said, I've only been doing it for 3 years, I studied for 3 years, how comfortable would you feel about it? And I said, probably not too comfortable. But having said that, I think in the same breath, depending on the scale of the project, I would prefer to use an architect. So my general rule is 1 to 9 units. From an extension to 9 units, I'm comfortable using the architectural technologist, because I can steer them in the direction that I want them to, from a design point of view, planning, etc., etc. I can help them with that. But I think when it gets a bit larger and you're now looking at dual aspects in complicated locations, you've got daylight and sunlight issues, you've got all forms of issues. I think sometimes I do respect the design eloquence that comes from architecture. And, I've been to design review panels, and there is a different design language that I don't naturally understand. So I think that sometimes when you've got like a good architect that's well read, well spoken, and is very good at what they do, the way that they're able to steer someone in a direction is quite skillful. And I think that that's the benefit you get from dealing with an architect. Whereas me, I would say, putting the house over there. The reason why we want to do it is because we think it's better than what it is now. Whereas an architect would say, the current design is currently perfect. We believe that this is going to express the elevation in ways that has never been done before, whilst appreciating the symmetry. Do you see what I mean? So I think that there's that design eloquence that comes with architecture that is very much appreciated by professionals like myself.
Sorry, I'm still not even that impression. That was good to that.
That was on point.
That's very true. I don't think these professions can be in isolation. There's actually too much. That's what we've established. I think
there's too much going on.
You need that balance. You need the engineer to be like, okay, this is how to do your design technically. What are the limits within physics and all of that? You clearly talk to everyone. You need things to run at all different levels. You're really good at that collaboration element, and architects have to have some of that too, to be liaising with their contractor, the clients.
Architects, believe it or not, they're very good with collaboration. I'm not going to even take them. I think the collaboration element is when we employ architects, we employ them as lead designers, and then they come with their team of structural engineers, sustainability, civil engineers, structures, etc., transport consultants. So they have to coordinate all of it, and I think they do a good job.
No, definitely. Yeah, and I know we're going to wrap up this soon, so thank you so much for answering those questions. This is just a little, it's always like a game, would you rather, but if there could only be one of these three professions in existence, which would you choose and why? So architects, developers, or engineers?
I'll say developer.
Of course, it's
Say
biased.
Why?
Why is that?
Why? The reason why is because I think that you know, when you look at our primate days at the beginning of time, we lived in caves.
Were we dead? I don't remember.
Well, according to the Darwin theory, it does suggest that we lived in that, and then we progressed into like huts and that, and then we carried on. Now, I think that developers have an innate ability to want to survive, and survive through whatever means necessary. That's legal, positive, and ethically sound. Okay, it's very important to say that. So I think that mindset that I think that we employ, I feel that we employ it the best, in my opinion.
Okay.
And because as a worst case scenario, if everything went wrong in this world and we went back to 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and there was we will literally say, all right, we're gonna dig a pitch, we're gonna dig a trench, then we're gonna put a little foundation in. We're gonna go back to the basics, and that's why I feel that I 100% feel developers have very practical ways of looking at things.
I believe that architects would go there, but they always try and do their best before they limit themselves. Do you know what I mean?
You'd be looking for silk pillows.
Yeah.
No,
Try and find the best hay to make your beds.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
We just want to sleep.
Why sleep when you can sleep in luxury?
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah. Okay, Amanda.
What I pick between architects, developers, and engineers.
Yeah.
Architects. I have to pick architects though. It's a bit mad
No one
about
told
it.
you had to.
I think architects have a really good understanding of the world and of people. I think we fit in between the concept of space and the concepts of the mind. Like I think, and we also have like a language of design that many don't really quite understand. You know, why they use spaces the way they do, why they interact the way they do, why they decide, you know, why their mood is impacted when they walk into a certain room and feel another type of way when they walk into another. I think an architect can do that. I don't think. No, I think developers can do that too, but on a wider scale. But sometimes you do need it on a more intimate scale to understand the way people think. And engineers, I think engineers are wonderful at what they do, but maybe they think about it like on a very intricate scale. So I think architects we're kind of like the middlemen almost.
Good balance.
Yeah, with the balance. We bring the
balance.
Balance. Yeah, the everything balance.
Yeah.
That's architects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you, Adonai?
I agree with everything he said.
Mm.
But when it comes to engineers, I feel like they will make it practically work.
Makes
I feel like
sense.
with architects, sometimes we can be in the design stage for too long, and then you get to the point where you have to make it work, and you're like,
there's this problem, there's
There's-
that problem.
there's
It
this
doesn't
problem,
work. You
this
need to
one.
change the design now.
Exactly. So I feel like engineers will just, they can take that to the next level and make it make sense and
Sense.
make it work.
So you're picking engineers.
Yeah,
Oh,
everyone has to
okay.
join a
Interesting.
team.
Yeah.
1-1-1. Okay, Naomi. Naomi.
Oh, no pressure.
You know what? I've always I admire engineers like a lot. Like airplanes, it's just incredible what they've been able to do. Like we've been actually able to fly like internationally, like all the way to the other side of the globe and back, and that's through pure engineering. We've got amazing stuff from engineers, but the expressiveness, like I don't know, architecture is just such a creative, like beautiful, expressive thing that kind of combines all of them and creates like almost a piece of art. but that's functional and works, and it does all these if it's done correctly, and hopefully if they, if the builder can stand, and everything works well, then it can be like an amazing expression of all those things. So, architects, all the way.
Oh wait, so you came to architects?
I was wondering
I
where
really
you was going with
this.
this.
On a journey.
I know, I was gonna go like.
You were like all engineers.
No, but the thing is, like, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a pilot. I just think airplanes are cool. So I was just like, it was either that, but the maths wasn't really there. So.
Okay, so 2 for architects, 1 for engineering, 1 for developers.
Yeah.
You're the last one.
I know. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Architects all the way for me.
This is a very biased conversation.
I try to be impartial.
No, actually, you thank you for stepping away. Should have stepped towards developer, but
No, see, I really respect every single argument that was brought forth today. No, I can see the importance of all 3, but I do believe that architects can do the most, not the most, but they can get by without the other 2. And I say that because Mandy brought forth the point in terms of understanding the way people use space, how they navigate and interact with space, and then also the aesthetic side, the artsy as you were kind of doing your impression, the way this elevation kind of mimics the reflection of the sea. So I believe they have that that kind of natural eloquence surrounding it, but if they had to, they are also quite resourceful, and a lot of them, there's rules of thumbs that we kind of learn. So if we know how to make a structure stand roughly, and then we can enhance that. Roughly.
You have to remember that, as even myself, as obviously I'm a core developer.
Of course you can do that.
But I can use AutoCAD. I know.
He's selling his skills. He's selling his skills. Yeah.
And I also understand structures as well. And I think that, as I said, ambition, is what has brought men and humankind forward. And you will not find a more ambitious group of human beings than developers.
He's really fighting for this thing, and he's not
I admire it a lot because
it's true.
I remember when I was choosing architecture, I wanted to pick something that, well, obviously I wanted something that I could use creatively. Like I like to draw and all these things. But also I wanted something that I could give back to my community and make the most impact 100%. And, build houses or, change the urban environment to an extent. I think developers can do that on an actual tangible scale, but on a large scale is you're building houses for so many people. And then and each one has a different story and background. They've got kids, families, some of them might be immigrants, and they're all living in the place that you built, and now you've created a whole community of space. So
do you know what I do like about the profession that you're in? You have you said you didn't want to talk about the power, but architects are always kind of subservient to the client, and then you can actually choose the way you're making change, if you know what I mean. And also that's on a larger scale. So
but this is it. I think that as a parting gift to you guys, I wanted to be an architect once upon a time. When I was younger, because when I did my BTEC and whatnot, at college, I thought, maybe I can try, but maybe my grades wasn't where I wanted it to be, whatever. But it's fine. But but the point I would say is that I find that a lot of architects are not very confident in their ability to operate in a commercial world.
That's very
Even
true.
though
That's
you guys are very intelligent, capable, etc., and all that stuff. But I think that when I look at, and I'm just gonna cut to the chase, when I look at how much architects earn, looking at my age bracket versus some of my architectural peers,
It's sad.
It's really sad, honestly.
And it's not, but when you think about the way that you guys command respect when you're discussing stuff, you can clearly see that everyone generally listens to what the architect has to say about this project. Do you see what I mean? Whereas on the flip side, I don't think that transcends. You guys don't take that on board and make it into something for yourselves. So I would recommend that you guys
we
try. We
definitely spoke about this in another episode.
It's very important that you try and take it to the next level.
I think that brings us to the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your opinions, for being here. It was honestly a great discussion.
Yeah.
We're so grateful for you coming. And yeah, so listeners, make sure you keep listening. Thank you for listening to our season 3. No offense, but make sure to follow us.
Yes.
Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at 1 to 100 Podcasts. Email us if you have things you want us to talk about at 1 to 100 podcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn. Make sure you're sharing, liking on Spotify and Apple Music. Yeah, so keep listening for how we can tailor our content to you. And it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Once you got your foot into the door, or that industry, you're able to essentially move around to wherever. If I wanted to be more design focused, I could, get into a design role. And that's really what I just wanted the opportunity to get my foot into the corporate world.
I was actually initially looking for apprenticeships.
That student finance refused to give me anything to pay for my degree.
Oh, I get to work and study and get paid at the same time. I was like, yeah.